Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out There She Goes, the laws and the original architects of Britpop. No British can.
Demos have an alluring quality. Sketches of what a song could be. Scrappy drafts filled with potential. Completely free from overplay. That energy, that naivety, is very hard to recapture. There's a term used for when musicians get too attached to the demo versions of their songs. Demoitis. And the Lars Lee Mavers is the patron saint of demoitis. A man that in his mind, whether due to perfectionism or paranoia, has yet to truly nail his debut album. You may also know him as being an architect of Britpop, the sculptor of the finest indie love song of the 1980s. This is New British Canon, and this is the story of There She Goes.
Okay y'all, I'm fascinated already. I gotta give props up to Kate for recommending this. Kate, everyone, this is Kate. Hi Kate. She recommended this video before this video even existed. I think this Trash Theory video is only a couple weeks old, but Kate's been telling me about the laws and this whole situation, that song in particular, probably like a few months ago maybe, I think. When she first told me the song There She Goes, the only song I could think of was that Sixpence None the Richer song. There she goes, you know that one? That's the only thing I could think of. Kate said, no, just you wait. So, the day is here, Kate. Y'all, let's raise our mugs to Kate. Thank you, Kate. Kate's a patron on Patreon. Thank you, Patreon. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, my other patrons on Patreon. But mostly Kate this time. Anyway, demoitis. I've heard the term. I've suffered from it. I've seen other people suffer from it. I've been the engineer who's trying to recreate a demo, but the artist loves the demo, and then just use the demo, right? But you can't, there's so many other fingers in the pie. The record label's like, no, can't use the demo. That's ridiculous. But is it? Use the demo. Anyway, I like how he described a demo. I think he had that also in the description here. Demos have an alluring quality, sketches of what a song could be, scrappy drafts filled with potential, completely free from overplay. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. You're just hearing the song in its most fundamental form before it's, produced or put it through the filter of whatever the artist marketing. I'm having a stroke. That energy, that naivety is very hard to recapture. Yes, impossible almost. There's a term used for when musicians get too attached to the demo version of their songs, demoitis. And the Lars Lee Mavers is the patron saint of demoitis. Y'all, okay, yeah, I don't think I've heard this song. I've never heard of Lee Mavers. Mavers? Hang on, let me hear him say it.
And the Lars Lee Mavers.
Mavers. Right. I'm excited to hear this song. I'm excited to hear the demo. And I'm excited to observe his descent into demoitis, which is a hell I have known. Many people have known. I'm not special. It happens all the time. All the time. And what I've learned, the remedy, use the demo. You got to come to terms with and accept that that's the only remedy. Use the demo, right? Or put the demo out as a B-side of the single, or, get the demo out there at least. Use the demo. Okay. Tell me, Trash Theory. Yo, be sure to go to Trash Theory and like and subscribe. Also, be sure to email Kate and thank her and bother her. And if you see her on a forum, tell her, critique her and make fun of her name. Thank you, Kate.
The story of There She Goes.
Okay. Oh, I like what I'm hearing already. Mike Badger and the Start of the Laws, 1983 to 87. Captain Beefheart, go, discs and demos. My girl sits like a reindeer, demo, the Laws. I gotta say, when I first saw the name The Laws, I pronounced it the LAs, just cause, I don't know, LA-centric.
Mike Badger formed the Lars in Liverpool in 1983, with Lee Mavers joining a year later on guitar. Various coincidences.
Quick, big up to Liverpool, Scouse not English.
With Lee Mavers joining a year later on guitar. Various coincidences convinced Badger that their union was kismet. Though Liverpool natives both had been in London at the same time, had met up and concurrently discovered the left-of-centre work of Captain Beefheart. Badger's
Yo, Captain Beefheart showed up in another Trash Theory video. And apparently Captain Beefheart was a dick. And he put his band through hell making an album. I couldn't find out what hell he put them through. Exactly. It's not published from what I could find. Anyway, the music came out great. Abuse works.
Badger's subconscious sealed the deal. I had this dream about the name The Lars. I hurried back to Liverpool, and as I got off the coach to go to my Mars, there's Lee at the bus stop. It was a signal. I phoned him up the next day, and we got together in his sister's bedroom with acoustic guitars and wrote My Girl Sits Like a Reindeer, which became Feelin' after I left. It worked. It was me ranting in my style, and Lee coming up with riffs.
Hang on, my girl sits like a reindeer. What does that mean? What does a reindeer sit like, sir? Is this an innuendo? How does a reindeer sit? With her legs tucked politely and ladylike beneath her, with her lady parts respectfully tucked away. Interesting. That's the demo. The demo sounds like it was recorded in 1964. That sounds like the 80s, or 90s actually. It has more low end. It's a more commercial sound.
It worked. It was me ranting in my style, and Lee coming up with riffs. Though music in 80s Liverpool was defined by the Eric's Club scene, the art school likes of Echo and the Bunnymen, Teardrop Explodes, and Wah. The Lars marked themselves.
Okay. I'm hearing a lot of The Cure in there. I'm hearing some The Smiths in there. I'm hearing the ska thing, the reggae ska thing that was big for a while. I'm hearing that in there with that second band. I don't mean to take anything away from these bands like they're ripping those other bands off or anything. I'm just saying, like, trying to contextualize the world they were existing in, you know?
The Lars marked themselves out as separate, embodying a ramshackle, skiffle, rockabilly sound, and acoustic guitars in a time when electric was king. Their lineup reflected this shambolic nature, being in a state of flux until 1986, when bassist John Powell was inducted after Badger met him at a government-funded unemployed musicians scheme. By this point, Mavers had started writing and singing his own songs, in contrast with Badger's, leaning towards British invasion-era pop. When I joined aged 19, Lee played me Son of a Gun, Doldrum, Freedom Song, and maybe another.
Run, run, rabbit, run, you're son of a gun. Then you know what you can do, just get on, cross it down. I'm not scared to die, God help me. We went to the...
At that time, about...
I hear that 60s influence in there for sure. Their demos sound like they were recorded in the 60s. I see how demoitis could come from that, because it's a whole other sound from that 80s rock thing. Wow. I want to hear those again. Let's hear them again, yo.
Run, you're son of a gun. Then you know what you can do, just get on, cross it down. I'm not scared to die, God help me. We went to the...
At that time, about 25 lads in Liverpool knew about the Lars. It was obvious that Lee was on a par with all the classic 60s and 70s stuff I was listening to. His songwriting was untouchable, and songs were just flowing out of him. Powell was a rudimentary bassist, but could be easily taught. What he brought with him was a boost in fanbase. The lads he was knocking around with.
Hang on, did he just kick that cymbal? I gotta watch that again.
What he brought with him was
that's badass.
rudimentary bassist, but could be easily taught. What he brought with him was a boost.
If I was the drummer, I'd be pissed.
The lads he was knocking around with, packing future shows at Liverpool staples, The Picket, and Everyman. Those that saw them play knew that the Lars was special. Tommy Scott, later of Space, was so impressed that it prompted him to completely rethink his then band, Hello Sunset, feeling hopeless in comparison. By the end of 1986, Badger and Mavers were clashing. December saw them play a show almost every day, while at the same time Mavers had been slowly removing Badger's songs from their setlist, gaining confidence, and subtly taking over the band. These tensions led to a pre-gig confrontation, and Badger quit.
Yeah, it was Badger's band, right? He quit. I mean, he I guess he did quit, but that's not what I meant to say. He started it, and Mavers joined a year later, right? Just back up. Let me get this straight. So John Power joined the band as a bassist after Badger met him at some...
Inducted after Badger met him at a government-funded unemployed musician scheme.
A government-funded unemployed musician scheme. That sounds depressing. But I guess they met each other. That's great. Putting people in touch. Get that work, boys. By this point, Mavers had started writing and singing his own songs in contrast with Badger's. Oh. Okay. So when John Power joined, the bass player, he's like this charismatic dude, I assume. He's a popular guy. Maybe played in some other bands, had a little bit of a fan base. They all came to watch him in this new band. So this guy saw them play live, and it made him totally rethink what he was doing. He was in a band called Hello Sunset, but later he was in a band called Space. Okay, so Space is probably influenced
His
by
then
Hello.
band, Hello Sunset, feeling hopeless in comparison. By the end of 1986, Badger and Mavers were clashing. December saw them play a show almost every day, while at the same time Mavers had been slowly removing Badger's songs from their setlist, gaining confidence, and subtly taking over the band. These tensions led to a pre-gig confrontation, and Badger quitting the band that he had formed. We'd done all the work, and that's when all the problems started. Mavers said to me, "Your time's nearly up in this band." And I was like, "What? It's not your band, mate." I said I'm off, packed my guitar, and got on the bus.
He was right.
I was gutted. 2 years' work gone overnight.
Man.
With their dazzling live shows around Liverpool and sending demos down to London, they had attracted the attention of various indie labels. The band soon signed to Andy McDonald's Go Discs in mid-1987,
Okay.
then home of Billy Bragg and the House Martins. With Badger's replacement,
I gotta watch this little video of them spinning around and dancing.
and the House Martins. With Badger's
Okay, that has nothing to do with anything.
in 1987, then home of Billy Bragg and the House Martins. With Badger's replacement Paul Hemmings on guitar and John Timo Timpson on drums. The Lars released their first single, The Waltzing Desire for Escape, Way Out, in October 1987.
Give it all you got now. Say, give it all you got now.
But while recording the single, they would encounter an issue.
Yeah, that sounds like the 80s, but I hear the 60s influence. Yeah. It does sound a lot like the demos too, with the placement of the vocals, has a lot of reverb on the vocal, just like his demos.
But while recording the single, they would encounter an issue that would recur through the history of the Lars. Lee Mavers found it hard to capture the band's sound in the studio. Way Out was eventually recorded by Gavin McKillop at Townhouse Studio.
God bless him.
But not before a failed session with John Porter at Matrix Studios a couple of months earlier. And the version Go Disc released was still not up to Mavers' standards. He was a disciple of lo-fi, before that was really even an accepted concept. He wanted a warm, analog sound, full of life. He wanted the organic hisses and hums of early Mono, Who and Stone singles.
Substitute your lies for fact. I see lies through your plastic. There's just no place for divided man.
In Mavers' opinion, despite their poor quality, some of the Lars demos approached this feel.
Use the demo, Mavers. Use the demo. Yeah, I think at that time in the late 80s, to do a retro sounding recording, I don't think anybody had really done that. Something that purposefully sounded old, not on like a world stage, you know? It's a brilliant concept. It's genius, actually. And you could say that later, gosh, you started that. I don't know who started it, but to my mind, I think the White Stripes or the Pixies in the late 80s, they started putting out recordings that were really raw, but not echoing an older time. The Black Keys, yeah, I feel like most of the time when people do a retro thing, there's still modern technical things about it that make it sound modern. No one wants to go all the way lo-fi, you know? That's a risk. That's a big risk. The big record labels aren't about risk. They want to know exactly who they're selling to and what they're selling, right? Efficiency. Business. Okay, I'm digressing. Ah, here it comes, y'all. He's descending into hell.
This I gave for all mankind, sail away on an ocean wave. I know you can't stand on your own two feet. Love is all, the world will fall, but this is all we came here for.
But in the age of digital recording and synthesizers, few studios and producers were able to get him what he wanted. And so began his quest to find the right sound for the La's debut.
Damn. Oh. Just put out the demo, right? Save a lot of money. He was too ahead of his time. Creating There She Goes. Oh, here we go, y'all. 1986 to 88, Stables, H-Word, and John Leckie. John Leckie also worked on a bunch of Radiohead stuff. Some of the earlier stuff John Leckie did. Anyway, There She Goes, 1988 single version. The Laws. Here we go, y'all. Let's go to hell.
Paul Hemming's parents had a sizable Victorian house in Liverpool with a
That guitar riff sounded familiar. Hang on. Is it the Six Piston on the Richard song? Hang on. Okay. My mind's being blown a little bit. Just give me a second. Okay.
Paul Hemming's parents had a sizable Victorian house in Liverpool with a disused stable in the back. It was here that the La's would rehearse for a few months in 1987.
Record your album there. Get one microphone, one tape machine, run through the songs, right? One track, mono. That's what he wants. That's what I would do.
Stable in the back. It was here that the La's would rehearse for a few months in 1987. During this time, they would record the only track officially released by Go Discs that fit Mavers' elusive search for the correct audio feel. The future B-side, Over, recorded in a barn on a tape deck.
Nice.
Lee loved Over.
That's beautiful. Put that
Recorded
out.
in a barn on a tape deck. Lee loved Over. My mum had bought me this Ghetto Blaster tape deck, and I used to record everything on that, just to remember things basically, little fragments of ideas. Over came together incredibly quickly. It was a lovely hot summer's day.
Okay. I'm on board. I like it.
Over came together incredibly quickly. It was a lovely hot summer's day. We turned it on and it just happened. The whole thing just flowed. That's one of those moments which you could never recapture. You record it the first time and you never get it again.
They were blessed. Congrats, guys. Electric guitar.
It was also around this time that Mavers wrote the band's signature song, There She Goes.
I've heard this.
Constructed from
I've heard that, but my ear's going towards that Six Piston on the Richard thing. Okay. Kate, you're f***ing me up. Thank you.
cycling riff, and a loved up lyric about an unknowable girl.
It is!
Hemmings added a complimentary riff on top. And with a touch of the Velvet Underground,
It is that song, y'all. Okay. Have you ever learned that a song is a cover and you didn't know it? That's what's happening to me right now. Wow. Okay. I see what you mean. Guys, Mavers, put out the demo. Use the demo. Right. It sounds great.
and with a touch of the Velvet Underground's There She Goes Again. It was pretty much complete. 2.5 near perfect minutes of jangle pop romanticism and yearning. The first time the band played it live.
I like his voice there.
The first time the band played it live at the Picket in June 1987, the crowd could tell that this was a hit, even with a jarringly different middle eight.
Oh. I think I like the demo bridge better. Oh, that's part of the demoitis, y'all. You shouldn't have changed it. I want to hear it again. I want to hear it again. Yeah, the middle eight that ended up on the album, it's not really a middle eight, is it? I mean, it is, but it doesn't change chords as much, right? It might be the same chord progression as the chorus or the verse, but the demo one changes. I like the demo better too, Mavers. Use the demo, right? Use the demo.
Female she throughout. Many have speculated that the song is in fact about heroin addiction, a key line seemingly implying that the love is for the drug. But when asked, all members have denied the association. Mavers would later have his moment with that particular drug, but at the time of writing he was too broke to be experimenting with anything, aside from weed and a touch of LSD. Inspiration for Mavers was always a bit more cosmic than most. The phrasing, the rhythms just come to me, and then I trace over them. Like with tracing paper, the words are melody. I usually take 5 minutes to write a song. It just happens. It's like a medium. His mind takes over.
Yes,
it's when he's not there he gets all his information, right? I'm not talking about drugs or anything, but the subconscious is always better than the conscious.
Yes.
There's star material, not like pop star shit. There's a light in all of us.
Yes.
You just got to levitate to the right level.
Yo, Mavers knew what he was talking about. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. He knew. I like that he said there's a light in all of us. I think we're all artists, you know? We can all do it. It's just about tapping in. Tapping into the thing. The subconscious is always better than the conscious. Yes. You've just got to levitate to the right level. Yes. Y'all. Yes. Come on, Lee.
Though pretty much fully formed, it would take about a year after the Picket show, as well as 3 different producers and studios, before recording anything that saw a release. After a supposedly unusable session with Cure producer David M. Allen at Easy Studios in London in October, they tried again with John Leckie at Chipping Norton Studio in March 1988, a few months before he started work on the Stone Roses debut. Leckie was keen to note Mather's unique way of working, seemingly unable to explain exactly what he wanted to the producer. Lee was also inclined to talk in a kind of Scouse psychopath. He'd spend half an hour describing the way he'd want the guitar to sound.
Oh,
Things
God.
like wanting to capture the sound of the tree it was made from. Or he decided he didn't like a particular cable because it was yellow. John Powell was a bit like that too. But when he did it, there was an element of humour. Lee seemed serious. Mathers knew his songs were good, but in the studio he was never able to capture the feel of the demos. Stuck burning through label money with nothing to show, Go Discs momentarily halted their wages. This, plus playing the same songs again and again, hoping for better results, wore on his bandmates. After Timo left in late 1987, the band cycled through 2 other drummers, before settling momentarily on Chris Sharrock in mid-1988.
You know, if Lee was taking half an hour to describe what he wanted his guitar to sound like to the producer, then you know he would have spent hours telling a drummer what he wanted the drums to sound like, or how he wanted the drum part to go. Lee. That's so strange because he seems to understand that creativity for him works when he's just not thinking about it too much and just letting it come out. But whenever it comes to documenting the songs, it's like he's not able to do that. He falls back the other way and gets really in his head about it. That's interesting. That's weird. Isn't that interesting? Huh.
Before settling momentarily on Chris Sharrock
Momentarily.
in mid-1988. Hemmings also departed before the single version of There She Goes was recorded. The guitar here played by John Boo Byrne.
They lost another one, yo. Lee's not easy to work with. Sorry about that.
Version of There She Goes was recorded. The guitar here played by John Boo Byrne. It's hard when you're repeatedly trying to capture in studio something that had a great degree of spontaneity to it, as those early demos did. That was quite frustrating for Lee. You went into studios and it just didn't capture it. You didn't get the same sound. In July 1988, the Lars teamed up with Bob.
Oh, so they recorded that same song a bunch of times. That was a John Leckie version. They must have recorded it with the guy before him. Those poor producers, y'all. Oh my God.
In July 1988, the Lars teamed up with Bob Andrews at Woodcray Studios in Wokingham. He'd previously worked with Jonah Louie, Tempole Tudor, and the Bluebells.
Oh. Okay. They sound good. Yeah, work with that guy.
But as all would, he found working with Lee Mathers challenging. By this point, Mathers was asking engineers to set up microphones in trees. And in another session, inside a Steinway piano, in the hopes that they could pick up the vibrations of the strings as he sang into it. He also had become adamant that concert pitch was incorrect, and began tuning his guitar to the frequency of refrigerator buzz. While we got on quite well, it was hard to deal.
Oh my God. He's overthinking it. He's in his head. He's put it on a pedestal. Nothing's good enough. The thing with putting a microphone next to the piano to get the vibrations of the strings as you sing, that's I would do that. I'd be like, yeah, that sounds fun. But putting a microphone in a tree, well, if there was a good reason to put the microphone in the tree, like if we were recording outside and we were, sure. Or maybe put a microphone in a tree outside of the studio and leave the doors open. Sure, I'd do that. Sounds fun. But he's definitely overthinking it. He began tuning his guitar to the frequency of the refrigerator buzz. That's a recipe for disaster. I know in America that hum is it's like a really sharp or really flat B flat. I don't remember which, but it's not a definite note. But it's close to A. I think in Britain it's probably different because they have the 50 hertz power. So it's probably a lower note, maybe? I don't know. Whew. I think it might be fun to work with him now that I'm thinking of it. I'll put a microphone in a tree. Hell yeah. This one band I worked with, we threw a guitar amp off of a balcony and recorded it. It was so fun. It took forever to set up, but it was fun. I'd be all about it, Lee. I think. I say that, but no, probably not.
Become adamant that concert pitch was incorrect, and began tuning his guitar to the frequency of refrigerator buzz. While we got on quite well, it was hard to deal with. We were in a residential studio, so after dinner I might mention something the song needed, and Lee would be, right, let's do it now, and we'd go back in the studio at 11 o'clock at night. Then the next day he might not like it, then another day he might like it again, but I had to strike while the iron was hot. From these sessions...
Oh, yeah. He shouldn't be allowed to listen to it afterwards, right? He's one of those guys. He had trouble maintaining objectivity. It's so funny because he knows himself. He knows his creative strength is channeling the ideas, but he couldn't do that with other stuff. I guess he cared too much. Like if he just said, y'all deal with it, y'all deal with the mix, y'all deal with whatever the guitar sounds like, let the producer and engineer deal with that. I'll be over here performing, focusing on myself, my guitar, my voice. That's what he should have done. But, it's easy to say, hard to do, right?
From these sessions, Go Disc claimed a version of There She Goes for release in November 1988. With its punchier 2-bar introduction and Boo's beautiful bell-like guitars that justified journalistic descriptors like jangling and chiming, the song failed to crack the UK Top 50.
It sounds
the sound
great.
Mavers wanted still evaded him.
Okay. Continued recording of the Law's debut, 1988 to 90, Abbey Road Disc, 60s Dust, and Steve Lillywhite. I've met him. Timeless Melody, Jeremy Allen version, The Laws. Okay.
By July 1989, they had tallied an additional 2 studio sessions without a usable album. Both in Liverpool, the 8-Track Attic, where they self-produced, and the Pink Museum with producer Jeremy Allen. Go Discs retrieved Timeless Melody from the latter.
In your mind, do you know what you will find?
Sounds good.
Printed copies and sent it to Radio and Press, where it was named Single of the Week by Melody Maker. A song about songs, amongst the lush harmonies and sparkling guitars, it expands on Mather's divination process of songwriting.
Melody always finds me when the thought reminds me.
However, it didn't sound just right, so Mavers forced the label to withdraw the single at the last moment. At this point, he'd gone beyond perfectionism, into sheer paranoia that the...
Yeah, into sheer paranoia. Oh my God. It's kind of rare that an artist has this much say, you know? Usually the record label would be like, no, we're putting it out. Sorry, we paid for it, we're putting it out. It's in your contract. I think he needed someone to tell him to go float a boat, go fly a kite. Go fly a kite, Lee. We'll deal with it.
moment. At this point, he'd gone beyond perfectionism, into sheer paranoia that these songs he'd been talking up in the press for the past 2 years might not be as good as he thought. The laws had existed since 1983, and by
He was talking him up. He shouldn't have done that.
might not be as good as he thought.
Damn.
The laws had existed since 1983, and by mid-1989, they had released 2 singles. By now, the laws consisted of Mavers, Power, Barry Sutton on guitar, and Chris Sharrock on drums. With a vested interest in getting a Lars album in the can, label owner Andy McDonald set the band up with Mike Hedges of early Cure and Banshees fame.
All right.
While on its face an odd fit, the Lars not being reverby post-punk types, Hedges had recently acquired a 16-channel mixing desk that had been used at Abbey Road. The hope was, with this, Mathers could finally find the sound he was looking for,
Yeah, you would
assembling the
think.
desk at McDonald's parents' house in Devon. The band spent a 10-day session re-recording the songs yet again. This time, it looked promising.
Okay.
Run, rabbit, run, your son gone.
Oh.
Then you
Oh, yeah. There's like a really quick chorus effect on that.
son gone.
Hey, huh?
scatter, fuss and shout.
That was until McDonald made a tactical error. Everyone thought it was great. Lee loved it, Andy was buzzing. Then Andy gave me and Chris £800 or something, each, to go on holiday. I think he wanted us out of the way so he could get in Lee's ear to mix it. But if so, it backfired. Lee got the hump because he didn't come on holiday with us. When we came back, he'd scrapped everything. The Mike Hedges sessions were probably the closest Mavers got to what he wanted.
I was gonna say, that sounded the most 60s Brit invasion of any of the other stuff. Even some of the panning had kind of a 60s thing. Early stereo.
The Mike Hedges sessions were probably the closest Mavers got to what he wanted, but has since said that shelving them was an attempt to take back control of his band, that as they had briefly left for Hawaii, they weren't as committed to the music as he was.
It's Badger's band. Badger's band.
His print the legend excuse was that the desk wasn't coated in the original 60s dust, and therefore couldn't possibly sound right.
Oh, yeah.
During his
Oh, that poor man. Oh, I think Lee may have suffered from some OCD.
11 months in the band, and therefore couldn't possibly sound right. During his 11 months in the band, Barry Sutton had 3 separate failed versions of these songs under his belt, and was increasingly bewildered in his position. Mathers had him play certain portions of songs 10 different times with emphasis on 10 different parts, leaving Sutton confused about what Mathers actually wanted, and whether it was actually possible for him to achieve it. I don't want to make Lee out as a bad guy, because he's very funny, but the atmosphere he creates isn't conducive to people doing their best work. There's a lot of attention paid to the exact phrasing of parts, strange guitar tunings, a lot of pressure. My playing was suffering. I was deeply paranoid all the time. When I was sacked, it came as a relief. Sutton and Sharrock were replaced by Peter Cammy Camel on guitar, and Lee's brother Neil Mathers on drums.
Okay.
In December
Family.
1989, the Lars had a final crack at recording their first album at Eden Studios in London with XTC, Peter
Steve
Gabriel, and
Lillywhite.
YouTube producer Steve Lillywhite.
Right on.
And if your Nigel says he's happy, he must be happy.
Initially, Mathers was impressed by this last-ditch attempt at a producer. Talking to Sounds in January 1990, he called him patient. He's got focus, and he's a producer in that he sets the environment that we work best in. But as always, Mathers got in his own way. I knew the songs were absolute diamonds, but getting them on tape wasn't so easy. Lee Mathers had this blueprint in his head for the record. It was like an acid trip that kept coming back to him, and it would mess him up. We'd record 6 songs that were fantastic, but if there was one thing wrong on the 7th, he'd be convinced that everything else was terrible, and we'd have to start everything all over again. Lillywhite's go-to methods of click tracks and recording piecemeal were anathema to a band like the Lars, who wanted a lively, organic sound, but still they were making progress. According to Mathers, the sessions broke down when he found a dossier titled A Producer's Guide to Dealing with Lee Mathers. A list of do's and don'ts to temper his more eccentric tendencies. A blow-up ensued, resulting in the band walking out of the sessions, never to return. Over 3 years, the Lars had gone through 8 producers, 9 studios, numerous bandmates, and cost Go Discs at least £1 million.
Oh my god. Yo, I gotta find that list. I wonder who wrote it. Well, I'm not able to find it, but I'd be interested to know what was in that dossier, yo. Like, probably a lot of useful information in that dossier. But maybe commit it to memory. Don't leave it lying around for the guy to see. Dang. I wonder who wrote it. Did Steve Lillywhite write that? I'd imagine not, because he would be the one reading it. I bet the label wrote it. I mean, to Lee's credit, if I found that about me, I would be pretty flabbergasted. I would feel like I couldn't trust people. I would feel like they were trying to manipulate me all the time, you know? So I don't blame them.
And they still had no album to show for it. The label had allowed their artist to follow his muse, and got nothing in return. So in an attempt to recoup some of their losses, they rehired Lillywhite to put the album together from available tapes, and released it as the band's self-titled debut in October 1990.
They should have done that a lot earlier, right? Wow.
The title, artwork, nor tracklist was chosen by the band. But still, it featured 12 of the tracks they spent most of the band's lifetime trying to capture on record, including the spirited Mersey beat of IOU.
Sounds great.
The cribbed I Feel Fine
That sounds good.
motif of Feelin'.
That
The
sounds
Kinks'
great.
musical march of freedom song.
I'm not scared to die, God help me. We went to the sea.
And the Bo Diddley shuffle of Liberty Ship.
I gave all mankind sail away on an ocean wave.
And though written 4 years earlier, the eponymous Son of a Gun had begun resembling Mavers.
He was bit by the 20th century.
A man who had become stuck inside his own head.
Now he's doing time in the back of his mind. He could hit him outside.
But it's really sad because, as I say, during the recording, he would start playing a song, another song. And I said, oh, it was like, who did that song? That's a great song. He goes, no, that's mine, La. I said, oh, can we record it? He says, no, that's for the second album. And I remember this song called Fishing Net. It was a great song. So, you know, he had great songs. He still has great songs for the second
Yeah.
album. But he, for some reason, it just was not it.
Damn, y'all. I feel sorry for everyone involved. But I understand why the label did that. I think Steve Lillywhite did an excellent job. It sounds great. I almost said good, but I wanted to say great, so I changed in the middle of saying it. That's why I said it like that. It sounds great. And the songs are great. Lee, I'm so sorry you had this in your head. That sucks. Okay. The Law's second album, 1990, cast Britpop and So I Married an Axe Murderer. Mike Myers film. Is that where I first heard that song? Okay.
Upon the eventual release of the Law's self-titled album, it was greeted with warm reviews and entered the UK chart at number 30, preceding
Awesome.
its emergence. Go Discs tried again and wrangled the Lillywhite version of Timeless Melody to an actual single release, peaking at number 57. However, Mavers disowned this version of the album and spent every promotional opportunity telling the listening public of his damning feelings and that no one should buy it. It's the worst thing I've ever heard, bar nothing. I can detach myself from it, and it's unmusical, it's out of tune.
That's not.
And the worst thing about it is the singing, because they took the backing tracks from the first 2 weeks we were in the studio and used the guide vocals. It's flat, out of tune, out of time. I wouldn't have minded what they've done if it sounded good. A re-release of There She Goes
that's
at the
not
end
true.
of October 1990 would finally get the song in the UK top 20.
Okay.
Where it remained for 3
Okay.
weeks, helped in part by radio DJs playing it to celebrate Margaret Thatcher's concurrent resignation.
That's hilarious. I'm realizing now that I heard this song in that So I Married an Axe Murderer.
In 1991, the band spent 6 weeks touring the US, Canada, and Japan. Mathers deferring most of his interview duties to Power after journalists
Good.
continued to quiz him
Good.
on why he hated his
Good
own
move.
album. However, some changes were happening. While the last setlist had remained pretty much the same 15 to 20 songs for the last 5 years, Power started to attempt to push for his own songs.
Won't you follow me down? No, nothing you don't know.
But like before with Mike Badger, Mathers was unwilling to cede control.
Well-
When they played a show at the Town and Country Club in London, Mavers refused to sing harmonies on Follow Me Down.
Won't you follow me down?
Oh.
It was
A 2-part vocal, 1 part's not there? Okay. Lee, come on, man. Come on. This guy's in your own band. He's your brother, right? He's your mate. Back him up.
It was guitars down and head to head between me and Lee. It was always, if you're not gonna sing on my song, I'm not gonna sing on your fucking song. Just schoolyard shit like. So I just started shouting into the mic, sing the fucking backing vocals. And then we stopped and it all went off.
Oh no.
By December 1991, John Power, the only person to stick by Mavers through the full length of their studio hell, walked away to form his own band.
Okay.
Cast.
Okay.
Walk away, walk away, walk away.
Though the Lars
Oh, he has a great voice. What a great song. I mean, he must have been inspired by Lee. He was in that band for a long time. He stuck by Lee for all that time.
Though the Lars pretty much ended after John Power left, there were still fleeting appearances from Mavers. The band spotted Oasis in December 1984, with Cammy now playing bass and new recruit Lee Garnett on guitar. The band just jamming on There She Goes over and over again while high, the power being cut
my God.
after they long exceeded their stage time. Rumours swirled that Mavers was deep into heroin, had a personal collection of authentic 60s dust, and perhaps most troubling of all, he was still trying to record his first album. The Lars missed their moment. Around the time of Way Out in 1987, they were being heralded as ones to watch. If their debut had arrived a month or two after, they, with The Farm, could have maybe got a late 80s Liverpool moment together. Instead, in the time it took the Lars to release one album, Manchester bands The Stone Roses and Happy Mondays emerged, rose, and were on the way out. They had delayed for an entire musical movement. As the 90s progressed, another Northern English band with a 60s fetish began dominating the charts.
I need to be myself.
Alongside the Beatles, Stones and Roses, the Lars were one of Noel Gallagher's favourite bands. Mere weeks after the release of their first single, he stated that Oasis want to finish what the Lars started. In fact, the whole Britpop, with its backward-looking musicality,
Supergrass.
chiming guitars, and the occasional nameless she, was just extrapolating on the work of Lee Mavers. And an entire scene of half acoustic, half electric, British indie owes its sound to the Lars.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that was big for a while, wasn't it? You'd have an acoustic guitar and electric guitar. Got kind of folksy in the 90s. There's a lot of that. I'm even sorry to stop it again, but the band Weezer, originally they were gonna have one electric guitar and one acoustic guitar all the time. They eventually gave that up because the guy who played acoustic guitar left the band. But anyway, yeah, that would have been normal back then.
I want to repair your desire. I still need you, but I don't want you now. Oh, what became of forever? Yellow 19 forever pull ourselves together. But when I see the signs, I'll jump on that lightning bolt.
Voice is similar.
At its essence, it was a continuation of classic British pop. The way that Oasis's The Importance of Being Idle pilfers the introduction of the Lars' Clean Profit.
Oasis, you did it again.
Which in turn often sounds quite like the Kinks' Sunny Afternoon.
Take me, by the hand, I cannot see. Save me from this squeeze.
Yes.
It's all connected. When I see him, I say, "Hey Lee, when are you going to release your second album?
Oh, no.
And he goes, yeah. I'll do it when I finish the first one. He's still trying to nail his first set of songs right after 27 years. So I've come to the conclusion he's either shit scared of ruining his legacy, or he's just a lazy
No,
In 2003, Lars fan M.W. Macefield attempted to track down Lee Mavers, now a reclusive figure rarely seen in public, and through interviewing his former bandmates, he draws his own conclusions about his hero, this Syd Barrett, Brian Wilson character, who has lost himself in the creative process. So when he finally did find him, an Everton-supporting father of four living in an unassuming semi-detached house in the suburbs of Liverpool, it came as quite the surprise. No heroin, no 60s dust.
Well, good.
Just living off the royalties of various versions of There She Goes.
Good for him.
Still with designs to get his album made. People think that I say those demos are the gospel. They're not. They're just a photograph, and not a great one. But the album isn't even near that. I'd rather take them on a desert island than that album any day. The demos are warm, and they've got vibe and character.
Yep.
That's all. 35 years on is becoming increasingly unlikely.
It kind of sounds like he's come to terms with it. That's good.
Character. That's all. 35 years on is becoming increasingly unlikely that Lee Mavers is going to record the definitive version of his first album. Less so that he's going to put out album 2. But not impossible. Every few years there's a report of activity, including actual reunion shows in both 2005 and 2011, as well as supposedly working with Pete Doherty's Baby Shambles in 2009. It might still happen. Until then, his genius lives on, racing through your brain. The songs that it contains, the feeling, that remains.
Wow.
Thanks for watching. So what other bands and artists with limited catalogues would you have loved to hear more from?
Thank you, Trash Theory. Thank you, Kate. Wow. Yeah, Kate knows how much I love the Beatles, so I can see why she was like, oh, just you wait. Wow. Man, that is the worst case of demoitis I've ever heard of. I worked with a guy one time who had a lot of resistance. If you've ever read the Stephen Pressfield book, which I recommend, called The War of Art, he talks about a lot of being an artist is dealing with resistance. We subconsciously put up all these barriers to us actually finishing something or starting something and finishing something. And I worked with this guy who had a lot of resistance. It was, oh, I don't want to record these songs until I have the right guitar. I need a new guitar. Okay, get a new guitar. I need to put a different speaker in my amp before we can record. Okay, like you could use a different amp, different guitar. You don't have to I gave every concession I knew how to give, but even then, after a while, he would just want to scrap everything that we had done up to that point, like totally not work on those songs anymore. New batch of songs, okay. But it never happened, it just kind of fizzled out. Anyway, resistance. Someone somewhere, I think it was Steve Jobs, he said, real artists ship, like, as in real artists finish it and put it out there. I don't know if I agree with that, but I do feel like the shipping is part of the hardest part of the process. It's tough to not be critical too. Being self-critical is so... that's part of being an artist though. You gotta let it go. That's part of the struggle, because a lot of great art comes from people not letting it go. And they gotta know when to let it go. Eventually you gotta let it go. I feel sorry for Lee. I feel sorry for you, Lee. But I'm also really proud of you for standing up for it. For being able to write those awesome songs and at least sharing the demo with people. Can we find the demo? Show me on Apple Music. Is the demo out there? Have they released the demo? I didn't know Allah was Scouse for mate. Dude. Look at all these releases. Okay. Wow. 1990 is the first one, y'all. Oh my God. Okay, these might be the demos here. Okay. So they have put out the demos. Interesting. I love that. Yo, this sounds great. Lee, Let it go. It sounds great. You made the first album. It's good. Get it out of your mind. Clear your head. And record that second album. Poor guy. Poor guy. Poor guys who dealt with him in that band. Yo. Steve. Lily White. I'm so sorry. He went on to do great things since then, so. Oi, oi, oi. Wow, y'all. Kate, you were right. This was amazing. What a great story. Thank you, Kate. Y'all, once again, let's all raise our mugs to Kate. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kate. Well, y'all, I'd like to thank my patrons on Patreon, especially Kate. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, Kate. Bye. Later. Later is what I meant to say. Later.